Hello and welcome to the day 7 of my Bike for Tiger challenge. I'm Julian Matthews, and I'm basically taking us on a wonderful game drive around Bandavgarh with 2 guests today. So delighted that you're with us. It's a challenge that we're running, a virtual challenge, and I'm on my bike here in the office, and we're doing a travelogue through the wilds of Madhya Pradesh, and I'm on day 7, and I've spent the last 20 years traveling through these magnificent forests, and I'm delighted to say that we've helped put them back on the map, those wonderful tigers, and helped do a lot of work associated with them as Top Tigers, as I'm the chairman of that organization. So really the Bike for Tiger challenge was coming out of the pandemic and was really an opportunity for me to get back on a bike, because I actually have ridden through the wilds of India a number of times. And you can see this was our first Bike for Tiger challenge in 2016, and we all got togged up, but like I am now. And just to prove that I actually have done it, here's me bicycling through a village that surrounds a big corridor between Pench and Kanha Tiger Reserves in central India. And basically I now, as I mentioned, have to do it virtually. And here's me sitting in my office here in the wilds of Somerset, and having to get on my virtual bicycle across all those kilometers. And I'm going to now give you some idea of where I am, and then I'm going to introduce you to my 2 guests, who my traveling companions around this wonderful Bandavgarh Tiger Reserve. So let me start by showing you where we're going on day 7. We've done a number of different days in different parks, and there's Madhya Pradesh just behind me. As I lean forward, you'll see it's central India, bang smack in the middle of India. And Nagpur, which is one of the key cities in that state, is the sort of main center, is regarded as the center, the mapping center of India. And if we then move to a slightly bigger scale map, you'll see Bandavgarh is right over here in the east part of Madhya Pradesh, and that's where we're going to be going to. And if we use one more map, here's a very simple map of the reserve. And today we're going to be taking you on a wonderful game drive from up there, Tara, you can see behind me, and then along past this wonderful fort here in the middle, and then down through the Rajbera Meadows, Sarah Meadows, and then off to the Katoli Range behind me. So covering all the different areas of Bandavgarh. And they are all unique and have their own flavors, so that's why it should be a lovely journey. So please do stay with us today. It's a real prime tiger habitat. I'm not going to give any figures away for how well Bandavgarh has done over the years, because I hope that'll come out in our conversation. But it's a great landscape, and it's a great landscape which used to have a massive fort in the middle, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well going forward. So I'm going to start the ball rolling by bringing in a well-known wildlife guide that I've had the pleasure to be alongside and with in the Jeep. So picture ourselves at that entrance gate to this wonderful tiger reserve. And if Jagat Chaturvedi, could you join me or in our vehicle, I should say. Can you come live and get your video on? And Jagat I'll just introduce you, he's a local boy, lived there all his life, and he'll tell you a little story about getting into the wildlife guiding, and then he'll help us. There he is. Jagat, lovely to have you with us. I was just saying, you're also a Tough Tigers runner-up guide.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Julian. Thank you for having me here on the program, Bike for Tigers Challenge. And it's really, really good initiative taken by you to raise the fund, and initiative which is going to help the community that is depending on the wildlife tourism. And it is of course, it is my pleasure to be here on the program. Thank you. Thank you.
No, well, thank you for coming on. We had a few issues just trying to bring you on live, but that doesn't matter because you're right here, right now, and you're busy living in the middle of Tala. So take me through. You had a lovely story about how you ended up becoming a wildlife guide, and you told me that story. Do you want to just quickly regale with us the sort of incident that got you involved?
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because when I completed my middle school from village Tala, and right after the exams of middle school, that during summer vacations, one of my schoolmates came to me and asked me to join him for a walk up to the Tala gate, and I did that. And his intention was to show me the guests, the tourists, Indian and foreigner, as well as the gate, which I did not have any idea about. And we started walking towards Tala gate. And by the time we got there, a jeep was already there with tourists, waiting for someone to join as a guide. So my friend who took me to the gate, he was called up by the official, reception officer at the gate of the park. And he was assigned as a guide. And then I had to wait there at the gate. And after some time, I see one more jeep arrive. And all those guides, because normally in those days, I'm talking about back in 92.
Yeah, long time ago.
Yeah. A long time ago. So the thing is, like, I was there and one more jeep arrived. No guides were left. They were all assigned because it was the day, Sunday, and the Sunday was used to be very busy compared to the normal days. So I was asked by the reception officer at the gate, and I went there, and he said, go and take a tour, take a jungle tour. And I was assigned randomly by
yeah, it was brilliant because you had no experience at all, did you? And you just suddenly found yourself in the back of a jeep, having to pretend you knew what you were talking about. And I think something happened right at the end of the game drive, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I was just wondering because I was taught by the tourists what I need to do. I was standing holding the bar of the jeep, and I was told to just spot the animal to show them. And I had a lot of questions wondering. I mean, I had a lot of questions hitting my brain that what I'm going to do. I mean, who these are people? I was so scared. I mean, I was not familiar with the people at all. And it was like I had so many questions, like whether they're going to leave me in the jungle or yeah.
That's when you had private cars going in. You could drive privately into the park. You didn't have the kind of jeeps that we have now.
Yeah. And then we did safari. I mean, it was like for 2 hours or so. And then we, on the way back near the Siddha Baba temple, a leopard was spotted by our driver. Yeah. And all of those tourists, they took their camera, photographed it. They were so excited. They were so happy. And at the gate, when they came back, when we came out at the gate, they gave their feedback that this guide was very lucky for us because we have been to Bandavgarh several times, never saw the leopard, and this time we saw because of him. And they came to me, and that was the beginning actually. That was the day when I started kind of doing guiding. Yeah. So I was training by myself from 92 to 94, and then finally a fine trader as a guide.
So it's a lovely story because that kind of happened to me once with my uncle in a wildlife reserve in India. He just said, come on, you take them. And I really didn't know and had exactly the same experience of feeling very underskilled for that job. But lovely that it's worked out, and fantastic, award-winning nature guide and stuff. And that is just a lovely story. So thank you. Now, if we can just picture ourselves as we get on the back of one of these lovely gypsy jeeps, and we're going to drive through the park now. And I'm delighted to welcome in the back of this truck. I know I'm on a bicycle, but we're going to have to picture we're on the back of a truck. And a fantastic gentleman. He's been an amazing beneficiary to Bandavgarh over many years, and he's going to talk to me. He's going to join us, and his name is Paul Goldstein. And Paul, there you are. You can just see you on a bicycle, but I'm going to carry on with the introduction if you don't mind, because Paul has been an amazing character. He's a very forthright character, as we all will get to see. But he's also been doing a lot of the most amazing fundraising, and I take my hat off to you seriously, because you do the most amazing amount of fundraising for tigers. You know, and tigers is a particular passion, and of course, Bandavgarh is where lots of that funds are going. And I can't remember how many marathons have you actually done in that suit you can see there behind you?
I've got
7.
Hello everyone. Cheers everybody. This is chai, masala chai, and outside it's like I have some of your Madhya Pradesh monsoon rain, which sounds as though it's threatening. It's crashing it down out there.
Perfect.
That is that animal, that suit was based on a female that you'd both know very well from the I suppose 2003, 4, 5, that used to have cub after cub in the Tala Meadow. She was probably the most valuable tigress maybe ever in the park, and she has run, or we have run together, 15 marathons. We're due to do London and the Everest Marathon this year. Unfortunately, that's not happened.
You're mad.
But it's no. I mean, it is. It's about the actual suit. It's not about the person inside.
Yeah, no, I get that. And of
I
course,
think
money's been going back into Bandavgarh, hasn't it? You've got schools.
Yeah. I mean, whether it's patrol vehicles, boreholes, schools, any number of things that, you know, really, I suppose, proliferating this very strong narrative that if people benefit from directly like that from their striped neighbours, they're likely to look after them. Let's be honest, they don't get a great deal of help from sources in India, and that will be the same for the animal kingdom all over the world. You know, you can see charity handouts from governments now. They've got too many important things to worry about. But it's probably close to $300,000.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, you're really brilliant initiative. Now let's so take my hat off to you, and please, if anyone wants to follow Paul and follow him up Everest again and down again, make sure
not to the top of Everest. It's let's be clear. People are asking.
That I have to say.
Then they round on me, Jules, and say, "Oh, well, you're just running."
Yeah, half measure.
Well, A, it's in that suit. B, it's at base camp. C, it starts at 5,500 meters.
It's tough. Whatever it is.
Let's be clear. No one else is doing it in costume. Last year, spookily, the first 35 runners in were all Nepalis. Well, there's a surprise. So it's a challenge, and it will be that and out. That will be the end of it. And I know I've said that more times than Stephen Redgrave.
Oh, well, you've said that to me too before now.
Yeah, I know. You are part of that coterie of people.
Okay, so Paul, let's get back on the Jeep, because you've got a little way to go. And I'm just going to give you this. This is a lovely...
That's not a Jeep, Jules.
No, that's not a Jeep. But we're now on the Jeep metaphorically, and we passed the elephant camp. And I'm interested in this elephant camp, Jagat, because this is where the park has some elephants, which they historically used for people to get on and off and go and see tigers in the wilds. But I think more is now for poaching. But of course, used to be where you used to live, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You lived there, didn't you?
Can you? I am correct, Jagat. That's where you used to live, wasn't it? And then you moved out when? In 2000 or something, was it?
No. That was, I was born, it was used to be a part of Tala village. The place was known as a Sannahatola. And right now, Jamunia camp or elephant camp is there. So that was the place where I was born. And my parents, they had the rented house. And when they expanded the area of the park, we had to move out back in 1982.
Oh, right. Okay, it's really as early as that. Okay, long time ago.
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. So we're going to keep on moving through the park. Lovely picture, seeing spotted deer. This is the kind of dappled shade you often get in the mornings. It's the most fantastic entry into Bandavgarh. And we're really traveling now towards the south, and we kind of really love that entrance. Bandavgarh's got a particularly beautiful sort of entrance, hasn't it, Paul?
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, that particularly when you're there when it's hot, which it generally is. That first 5 minutes is beautiful because of the water. However many, I think it's 8 permanent watercourses, and that granite. The temperature is always a lot cooler. And in fact, in winter, you know, often when you're driving there late on the day, it really drops. I mean, I've seen frost there, and the other great thing is there is a lot of shade in the park because people, and there's a lot of nonsense said about the best sightings, but I think you could argue there's a strong course of opinion that if you go there when it's very hot in May, June, the animals center around the water, so it's nice to have a bit of shade. But it is enchanting. And anybody who says, "Oh, you can see those deer in Richmond Park," well, yeah, they are quite similar, but you're not going to see them with a background like that. You're not going to see them in that temperature. You're certainly not going to see them with the calls you hear all of the time. And that, I notice on Springwatch at the moment, they're doing a lot of these meaningful moments where you turn off everything. There's no
that's brilliant. I like that.
Sound, and it's brilliant. And I'm sure, I mean, you've done it many times. I noticed you nodding your head sagely. I'm not sure sage is a word we can use at the moment appropriately. But it's perfect. And I love that, particularly when the sort of arpeggio changes, the crescendo changes from a few bird calls and suddenly that snap of the warning call. And it gives you that sort of flush that I don't think I think a warning call, particularly a monkey one or a samba deer, gives you that thrill that no artificial substance ever could. And this isn't one, oh, there may be a cheetah miles away in Africa. This is very definitely a tiger, or they seem even more feverish if it's a leopard. Obviously, leopards.
Yeah, of course, all that sort of stuff. So, and Jagged, you'd agree with that. The reality in those crisp early mornings, you quite often got. I mean, a couple of years ago, I was traveling through there, and it got really bad frost. So a lot of the trees had been, which is very unusual at that time to be zapped. But it's in these sort of places that we suddenly spot something, and it was one of my game bugs about 10 years ago when I captured this glorious creature. And of course, I love this picture. It's probably the best picture. I'm a crap photographer. I'm anywhere close to being Paul. Stop nodding like that, Paul, because I know you've seen some of my photographs. But I love binoculars. I swear by my binoculars. But this was a picture I did capture, and it's Jaya. But in Vijay, I think you call him. What would you call him? Kankati, I think, if I'm correct. Would you call it Kankati?
Vijay must be Chakradhara female, I think.
Okay.
Female.
Okay. You may well, but and she was in this area for a number of years around the Chakradhara meadows.
When was this, Jules?
This would have been 2009.
Yeah. Okay, that's the one. She's quite senior then. That's the one the suit was based on. That's the female.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
she was the one who lost an eye. Do you remember she lost an eye?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. To later on, but she was ferocious as well.
Tough old bit. And then, sorry. And then she had a number of cubs, same sort of area in this Chakravarti area that we had. And these are not mine, but I got these photographs, and it was at a time when I was with K2Wari, and we were working on a thing called Tiger Nation. It was a platform, as a kind of Facebook for tigers, effectively, and we were following them and diarizing them and picking up their stripe pattern software. And it was a really interesting time because she was a feisty old bird. And there was sort of diaries, and you could do all sorts of things. You could see her lineage and stuff. It's sad we never managed to make that continue, but it was a really interesting time. For me, was a really fun time. So let's not worry too much about it. We could see her as she grew, as the cubs grew up. We followed right through. A couple of years we followed and watched those cubs migrate. So we've now moved into the Chakradhara area, and a really special area. It's changed a lot, Jagat. Do you think since the early days, Chakradhara?
Yeah. I remember when you were talking about 25 years ago, it used to be a very high grasses.
Yeah.
And, used to have very high grasses plus marshy land.
Yeah.
It used to be the marshy land. And after some time, after some years, the grass level gone down due to, I do not know what was the reason behind, and the marsh is disappearing. So that is what has happened. Now it's getting back. I mean, the forest area is recovering. So okay. I see the difference between what was used to be and now what is happening right now.
I think what happened there is, I must say, I missed that long grass. I think it was one of the most enchanting areas, because in the day, I can remember going there a long time ago. The first time I was there, and you could get up on an elephant and go in, and almost invariably there'd be some tigers lying down there in the grass. And it was enchanting. I think because the grass was so high, it meant there was a lot more shade. And so it didn't dry out as much. I think it's something very simple. I don't see that watercourse drying up. It's still running adjacent to that road you see behind Jules there. But this for a long time was really the sort of baptism for most people. Most people, you know, for a long spell would drive in there, and that's where they saw their
This was the kind of premium zone.
Around.
This is where you got it. You had Chakradara was usually the main zone for one or two top tigresses and you know, the big males. And so
this was used to be the perfect place. This was used to be the main place where we used to organize tiger shows almost every alternate day, right here by elephants.
Yeah.
And this was used to prime habitat for tigers.
Yeah, it was.
I mean,
and I think they burnt it and started changing the grass.
No, it was a mistake. I mean, I can remember. I think you will know Kotapan very well. I mean, he was my first. Of course you do. Yeah, I can remember going up the first time, and it was a joy. And the elephant didn't go very far, and it was we can get onto elephants in a bit, but before we get animal right people coming in and getting awfully excited about it. These are working elephants that live harmoniously with their mahouts, and there was a lot of song and dance about this, which was completely wrong, and it has no sympathy in the park. But it was wonderful, and it was only on for a few minutes, but it was certainly one of the youngest tigers I ever saw. It was a joy. It was a really fabled area. It's still enchanting, and also, you know, when you drive through for probably about 3 minutes, and then you branch left, and then there's that circular water hole, which is always that bright green color. When you see Papu or Dinu, which you will, I know you will, please tell him it's 92 game drives and I've not seen a tiger there. Would you remind them of that, please? Because every time I go to Bandavgarh, whenever I go there, Papu says, we must drive there. I say, we won't see one. He says, we must drive there because the day we don't. And he always tells me that
didn't they, Paul, didn't they put some sort of stuff to look there and stop there and look over it and have, didn't they?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the perfect spot, but I've just never seen one. And you know those guides who love reminding new guests of why they weren't there the week before.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
They were mating in the water. Well, I tell you what, that is my nemesis in Bandavgarh. I lie awake at night thinking of it.
Yeah, no, well, let's just talk us through this, because I adore this picture. This is one of your very special ones.
Yeah, that was last year. I was guiding. You will certainly remember these. And Disney were filming. They had a fantastic team in there. And unfortunately, the female had a bit of a dust up with another male. So it was quite tough. But this was Magdi's zone. And fair play to Bandavgarh for having branched out into these other zones. And actually, last year, Magdi was much better than Tala's. Much better.
We'll go there.
Even better still. But this one was, we just waited and we kept saying, well, they're not going to come out. They're not going to come. You know, one of those afternoons. And then it was the first time I saw her with her 3 cubs. And yeah, when you have that light and shade and almost matching or complementing the stripes on her back. Yeah, I mean, it's never going to win any awards, but that is Bandavgarh in a nutshell. When you look at that but what I particularly like about it is if you look at the animals don't really have expression, but if you look at the countenance of the cub, they're about 5 months old, it's not remotely concerned, not in the slightest.
No.
So anybody who ever thinks that tourists are bad for these animals, you're just wrong. And I'm happy to take this offline in a proper argument, but you will lose.
Of course, I'm totally with you on that one. And
well, no, I mean, but it's serious, Jules. You fought blisteringly hard, feverishly hard about 7 or 8 years ago when they closed the parks.
Yeah, of course. I did.
To hide and disguise their utter incompetence in looking after their meal tickets, they closed the parks, which is not tourist. Everybody.
Well, the real brilliant thing about this pandemic is everyone's screaming, oh, tourism is going to affect tiger conservation, and everyone says, so actually the two are now coming into a sort of
yes, they are.
Crash. And that actually might well help the tourism community across India and across the world to actually recognize that actually we need to get these two working in partnership, joined together at the hip, and making sure that they do a better job right across the globe in terms of saving species and landscape.
Yes, we do.
But I particularly like this because this, to me, this picture shows just where tigers come from. They are dappled foresters where they belong. That's where their coats belong. You've effectively got stripe pattern on the road next to it. I mean, it couldn't be more visual for you as a you know, where this animal has come from. So I just particularly like it. I'm going to move on to another. So we're now going to carry on driving. We go, don't we, Jagat? We go up the hill. We actually turn left at the Chakradara Meadows, if I'm correct.
All right.
And we
it's,
go.
It's just quick photograph.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This
Okay.
photograph, it is from top of the Badi Gufa, at the cave area.
Yeah, the cave area. So that's where I want to get.
Yeah.
So we're still in your territory. We're still legal. We're still in the 20% part of the park, which I won't go into that whole argument and so forth. So don't get me on that one either. But lovely area because, of course, just here, this is the famous Bandavgarh fort behind me. And it is the most magnificent place to go and see the whole plethora of Bandavgarh. You can walk around the entire room and you used to be able to walk. and I never, Jagat, tell me, why did they close Bandavgarh? The best part of the park, why did they close it? I never understood that.
No, their intention was not to close the visit to the fort. Actually, the fort is there in 80% area of the park. As per new guideline, we are supposed to have tourism only in 20% of the core parks. So that is there. The fort is lying in 80%. That is why they had to suspend the visit to the fort.
Yeah. So they take out the best bit of the experience of the fort and give it some other fatuous reason. Anyway, that's a whole other. So let's just drive because this is a very important part. This was not only a fort. This must have been a massive sort of sacred area. There's hermit caves. There's a whole and this lovely shrine. Just talk us through the shrine, if you wouldn't mind, Jay. Give us some idea of what happens here.
Yeah, the reclining statue of Lord Vishnu, and this statue is getting back to 10th century AD. It's almost 1,000 years old.
Yeah.
And this is the place. I mean, when the pilgrimage takes place, it is like twice a year, and the birthday of Lord Krishna is being celebrated right at the top of the fort. There is a main temple which is dedicated to Lord Rama, and the people, they start by 8 o'clock in the morning and they have to finish by 5 o'clock in the evening. So it is still continuing, and it happens every year. And the birthday of Krishna is there during monsoon when the park is closed. So there is only one road which is open for pilgrims to go all the way up to the top and then come back from the same way. So this is what happens almost every year. And it has been happening for last several years.
Yeah, and it is amazing that, you know, people, if they understood this, is that you get tens of thousands of people walking right through the middle of Bandavgarh. In fact, in some reserves, up to 20 million are done in the south, going every day, thousands of them going in and out. No one's ever touched. No animals ever created a problem for these pilgrims. They go in and out and they come in. They sadly leave lots of stuff behind, which is a problem, but they've got systems which allow that to happen. But it is amazing today that you still can get that many people. The minute a tourist steps off, the GP gets shot down in flames and kicked out the park, and I think it's amazing. A million pilgrims can go in and out, pee on various other sites, and the poor old tourist who's paid a shitload of money to go and gets in big trouble. But anyway, that's a story. So let's carry on our journey further up, and just a few pictures. The fort itself is a beautiful place to go, and I've always been petitioning that the fort should be opened again to tourism. When I was there, you know, it really has. It's got a lovely temple at the top, and it's, you know, it's got this beautiful view. I mean, it really just gives you some idea of the scope of Bandavgarh, and of course it gives you some idea of how small, in reality, a lot of these parks are, and the human habitation that surrounds them, and just where these tigers now have to live in fairly small pockets of India. So it is such a shame that we can't do it. When I've gone up there, the one thing I've been amazed at is that the smell of tiger urine is always up there. Very pungent.
Yeah, I mean, right, Bandavgarh Fort itself, it's a beautiful habitat for all the animals, not only for tigers.
Yeah.
It is good habitat.
Yeah.
And it is only because there's a sufficient availability of water.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it is. I remember back in about, I think it was about 2000, there was some French people filming there, and you know, they were there in the really hot time of year. And this great story of the Frenchman, I mean, I have no doubt this is almost blasphemous, but they took a bit of shade up by the temple of the statue, the in reclining statue of Vishnu, and he was so hot he just got in there was only two of them. He just actually had a bit of a swim, and he was just lying back. And then he looked up, and a tiger was just lying on the statue, looking in the water. You know, it's just a magnificent story, and again in harmony. And these, you know, these animals are intelligent. I always say that, you know, you behave sensibly, sensitively, quietly. With, you know, patience isn't a virtue; it's a must. You get the best from these. It's not about charging around, just chalking off species.
No, you're so right. I mean, that's absolutely the key. Is, you know, it's slow, and you'll find it. And my favorite way of going around anywhere is actually on foot. I much prefer to be on foot. You probably don't see as much, and not in these sort of places, but you read as much through the ground and through the floor, and you learn much more about nature than you do. It's not great for photographers, but you definitely learn.
Jules, can we have another image? We're looking at two of you there now.
No, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so the wonderful thing about here,
much prettier.
Just no, you're telling me that a long-billed vulture.
Yeah,
I think it's called
that's
Indian
a fine
vulture.
Bird.
That's a fine bird.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
lots. How are they doing around Bandavgarh? Because of course that hill is a massive sort of home for many different species of vultures there. How are they recovering? I know they've had a terrible time in India the last decade.
Yeah, I mean, we have in Bandavgarh, as I say, there are more than 5 species of vultures. And vultures, one particular species like Indian vulture with nest upon the plates. So they are doing very, very good. I mean, after when they banned the diclofenac sodium, that medicine was used to be given to the cattle. So after the ban of that medicine, the number is increasing, and they're doing good.
Oh, good, good. Yeah. And you think diclofenac is being taken out of the sort of general the general populace using it on their cattle and stuff now? Is that happening? Do you think that's happening, or is it undercover now a little bit more?
It is already out of stock. I mean,
it's out of stock.
Being used. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm delighted by that. So that's a special. You can certainly see them. And did you see many? You would have seen some when you were there, Paul, over the...
Yeah, not very many.
Not very many.
Not very many. Yeah, you generally don't see them that close up unless they've found some carrion. You know, high above the rocks with some of the eagles you see up there, but no, not that many.
Yeah. You can see
they've suffered. They've suffered. I mean, this isn't mutually exclusive to an avian problem just in Bandavgarh. It's all over the world. It's a tumbling, and it's generally due to pesticides. You know, ghastly things.
Yeah. So we're now in the Rajbera Meadows. Have you been lucky in the Rajbera Meadows, Paul?
If you drive, this is a drive I know very well, and you drive up to this waterhole. Now, this isn't a bad waterhole. Often the problem with viewing game in Indian national parks is there's an ugly waterhole which is close, so it doesn't make much of a photo, or there's a beautiful one that's too far away. And when this has plenty of water like this, like the image you see here, it's great. But when you turn left here and you run next to the dam, I'm sure you would agree, Dagat, that is the prettiest place to see any animal, leopard or a tiger, because the water is black and it's green, and deep green, and it's gorgeous. And it's only like 2 minutes from here, and it's the same water course. And 18 years. 18 years. That's it, yeah. 18 years I drove past that. And every single time I arrived, you know, I would hear of the extraordinary sightings. And then 3 years ago, we'd done it. We were coming out. We had a full day pass, and we're driving out. And, you know, you still keep looking, a bit like the other one, 92 game drives.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, of course.
There was this gorgeous female just lying in there, and it was enchanting. And I probably only took 2 photographs or something, but yeah, it just shows, you know, that these aren't easy. This isn't like being in a national park in Africa. And when you compare it to conservancies, they're light years behind conservancies in Africa. But it's very easy to categorize all the difficulties and frustrations, but still, you know, why is Dagat still going in there year after year after year why do we still do what all his colleagues? Because, you know, the thrill is still there. That almost visceral thrill. And that particular day was remarkable.
Yeah,
and it's not about, and I always say this, it's never about accumulation. You know, one tigress lying almost prostrated in that water, perfect water hole at any time of day, is worth a dozen tigers just sleeping in the long grass. So yeah, you got to prepare to work for it.
No, you do, and you've done the hard job. Now, I didn't capture these, but this is a lovely picture, and I love it particularly. Here's I think Jaya, which was Vijaya's sister. Actually, this was her area, and I particularly like it because here she is stalking. You could just see the spotted deer in the background in this meadow, and then suddenly somehow they get wind of her, and I just love the tails. The tails are up, and they all disappear, and that's ambush over. Have to start again, and of course you and I know that so seldom do they actually get anything. That actually, I mean, I don't know how many ambushes you've watched, Paul, in your time, or Jagat in your time.
No, I mean, I'm going to bow to Dagat here. How many open kills have you seen in your time in Bandavgarh?
Yeah, good point.
There you are. There's a question.
Yeah. It's very rare to see open kill. I mean, like you always, like tiger by nature, they always take that advantage of ambush, and for that they prefer to be there in the grass. They'll be hidden, and all of a sudden they just start running after the animals, or just jump over on the animals in order to kill them. So this is what they do. Very, very, very rare to see.
Yeah.
Hunting. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, you were breaking up a little bit there on sound, but this is an ambush animal. It's not like, you know, stalking a cheetah that hunts in the open. And well, I've seen tigers with spotted deer in their mouths. I've seen them feeding. I've seen many. I have not seen one actually. You know, I've seen attempts fail awfully, but. Yeah, but then anyway, you know, that's not how you gauge your time there.
No, of course. And I think it took.
But that previous image, when you see the animal's shoulder, one shoulder drop down and the other one come up, and the whole demeanor changes. I mean, that is intensely exciting.
Yeah,
it really is. And somehow, particularly, this is a large animal. This is the largest of the, well, a Siberian tiger is a little bit heavier, but this is one of the largest of all the animals. So this is of all the predators, and so it is desperately exciting for anyone to watch.
You're absolutely right. Now, just to move on to a slightly different creature, only because we forget a little bit. There's more than just tigers in this great park. Lots and lots of bird species that we're going to come back to. But this is one of my old time, the ugliest one on the book. The adjutant stork, and you see him in various ponds around Bandavgarh. So he's always rather fun to capture on a camera as you go through.
And I tell you, it is quite similar in looks. I use that term loosely to a marabou stork, which is larger wingspan. And the only similarity is that they've both fallen out of the ugly tree and hit just about every branch on the way down. It's a fine bird, but this isn't the prettiest bird you could have chosen, Jules.
I know it isn't, but I rather love them. I love them because...
Yeah, there is something about him.
And so we now drive into...
Something about an ugly bird.
The Sarah Meadows. You're driving us into the Sarah Meadows from Rajbir. I think there's a few turns on the way to get here, because in fact we have to go all the way out one gate and come back the other to get back into this part. So we've actually gone around the other side of the fort now. And this is really where you had a good time last year, didn't you, Paul? You had a fun time.
Yeah.
And,
well, where are we in? This is in Magdi, and this was extraordinary, and it was the bonus of having a full day permit. I mean, it is a heinously, almost criminally expensive amount to pay, and bless the people I was guiding. We did it for 2 days solid, but. Never mind the fact that you can get in a bit earlier. I mean, the opening times are silly. They should be much earlier.
Yeah, of course.
Anywhere. It's the basic tenet of any game drive is that you should be in before sunrise. But what made it great is you can take any route you like. And I remember, you know, hearing that the mother had made a kill close to this. And she had 3 boys. They're about a year old. And you need an awful lot. I use this phrase a lot. Faunal alignment for these things to happen. Number 1, it's got to be visible. Number two, it's got to be visible to plenty of vehicles. It's no good if you can just get two in there. Otherwise, you're just going to have a circus. I will leave. Number three, the water can't be too deep. Otherwise, you know, they won't be able to play. But critically, it's 3 boys. Because if it was a boy and a girl, after a bit of play fighting, the girl's going to retreat because she's going to be 5 or 8 kilos lighter, and she's going to not be able to punch above that sort of weight difference. And critically, you've got to have one that's a little bit more feisty than the others. And they started playing, and we realized it was a big kill. This was.
Hold on a second, Paul. We're getting a bit of interference. Jagged, is that your interference coming through there? There's a bit of online interference too. Do you mind just switching your video off and come back in? Is it?
I had a problem of getting the voice.
You're not working properly. You're not getting the voice. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Jagged, if you can't hear me, it's probably not the worst thing in the world. But the critical thing about this is
we've got to move on a bit quicker here, guys. Just because.
Okay. No. Let me finish. I remember Papu, who you know very well, turning to me and said, "How long have we waited for this?" Or whenever anyone asks me how long I've waited to take that photograph, the answer is always the same. It's about 20 years. 3 days of this sort of fighting. Yeah. Okay, you can move on, Jules.
No. Well, we've given you that, and I completely agree. Beautiful pictures, real special. And they happen in an instant. You've got to be absolutely bang on there as a photographer. So real joy. And you rang me up, I think, after that. Jules, I've just had the best time in my.
Yeah, it was the best. Brilliant. The best I've seen. And but so critically, Jules, there were 4 people with me who'd never been to India before. So you know that they don't deserve that sort of luck. Sorry, they don't.
No, they don't.
That's how it works. That's so unreasonable.
They paid for you to be there, Paul. You got to remember that.
Yeah.
Right. So a little one. Here's a really interesting one. Same meadow, elephant trundling through. Now, elephants are used a lot for anti-poaching, and this one would be part of that anti-poaching. And you know, we have all sort of arguments about whether we should use them or not. These are the best things on the planet for poaching and for getting tigers out of villages and back into parks, etc. There's no other vehicle that does it as well. So they are immensely valuable in that, and certainly during monsoons and everything. So I'm going to have to talk a little bit quicker because we're a bit short on time now. So we're now out of the Magdi zone, or we're driving back through it. Lovely old sal forest, quite a young sal forest here, aren't they? They're not really big grown up. And just to give Paul a little bit more coverage, some beautiful birds that you see here. So
yeah, there's always good bird life. I'm quite enjoying the feedback we're getting from India because it almost sounds like a warning call coming. That feedback I'm getting. So you know, anybody who thinks that, you know, first of all, let's just say something about if you were as ill as everybody looks on Zoom, you'd be dead. Number two, no, it's gonna highlight every single blemish. You know, stay with us on this. He's in probably in a very, very hot little room in Bandavgarh in June, in the middle of.
Jagged, it's really,
a little bit of feedback. Stay with it, please. Stay with it. Yeah, I know, and particularly when it gets hot, the tigers are asleep, the leopards are asleep, everything's pretty much catatonic.
Yeah.
So birds, yeah, whether it's it's
lovely little purple sunbird,
particularly when there's been rain and insects, sunbirds, purple sunbird, and there's your Indian roller.
So ubiquitous bird you see in the farmland.
Sorry, not Indian roller, green bee-eater. Sorry, dreadful. See them all over Sri Lanka and India. Sorry, that was ornithological heresy. Now that is a bird in my ever-evolving top 10 of birds. The male paradise flycatcher will always be there. That list of 10 will change every single day. And an African martial eagle and a paradise flycatcher will always be top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
It's an astonishing bird. And to see them down at the waterhole and just emerge with that spume just running off their tails. Oh, what a bird.
Yeah,
in India, is I want a tiger behind that bird. Focus on the bird. Jagat, you've got to make that happen.
But then you'd have the national bird of Madhya Pradesh and the national animal of Madhya Pradesh in the same photograph, if I'm correct.
Is that amazing? In fact, Jagat, would you ask... Please ask Papu, Dinu, Pinku, Ravi, and Salim why they've never done that for me. This was actually with Papu. That Indian roller, yeah, you tell them they're absolutely rubbish. 20 years, they've never done that for me. Would you, yeah, if you look carefully, I don't suppose you can, but you're just going to have to believe me. In that roller's mouth, an Indian roller, very similar to an African lilac roller, not quite as colorful, but it's a baby monitor lizard.
Yeah, no, that's good.
That was very close to center point in time.
That would be very, very baby monitor lizard. It just come out.
Yeah, it was tiny. I mean, it must have been almost a newborn. And the roller, it gave it the whole sort of bling slap like this for a long time, 10, 15 minutes. And then eventually it just dropped it. Couldn't do anything with it. And the thing crawled off. So fairly durable.
So we're now going to move on into Katoli and just talk you through the last part, the last reserve. And in fact, when you travel to Bandavgarh, this lovely place, you actually end up having to do game drives into one of these three. So this is really the last, and actually was the last opened. It was only opened, what, 8 years ago, Jagat, I think, Katoli? It was sort of always seen as a bit...
Katoli and Midi, both of these zones were opened from 2008.
2008. So, you know, and most people said, you know, there's nothing there, nothing to see, nothing, whatever it is. But of course, you know, even you, Paul, saw some amazing things this year.
Listen, I think it needs, you need a almost seminal moment with any new reserve conservancy zone. You know, let's not be continent centric here. And it just needs a bit of publicity. You have a tiger with some cubs that are fairly tolerant. But last year, I was driving out of Magdi. I was on an all day and from the main road. Well, hang on a second. There's a huge male. And so we drove in and we...
So, Paul, you're breaking up now, sadly. You've disappeared. Yeah. So we've got, sorry, Jagat, you
saw the male. I reckon it was 3 minutes in. A little further on was, can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Connection is unstable, I'm telling you.
Unstable. You've probably been talking too long, Paul.
Hang on, let me see if, no, it should be all right.
Okay, so we're getting a little bit of, Jagat, can you switch your video off, see if that makes a difference, or maybe an audio problem?
No, I'm listening here. I'm getting your voice. I'm getting your voice.
Okay. So we're getting a little bit of background interference. I do apologize, everyone. But we're still in Katoli, and Paul was extolling the beaches, this wonderful place. And I've had some of the best sort of sightings of these wonderful fellows.
Oh, look at those.
Sua, as they called in India. Huge, I mean, big. I mean, the biggest sounders I've seen of these, sort of 30, 40 all together. I mean, they must be breakfast, lunch, and dinner for some of those tigers that are now there. It's a most fantastic place and very underrated, and I think perfect. And just to give you some idea, you drive towards the end of the game drive. I don't know if you can still get here, Jagat, but you then look back over that and you can see the fort in the distance, and it's just a nice way to get there. And I'm going to quickly, because we're well over normal time, I'm going to just give this beautiful picture because Paul and I want to talk about a particular issue here. And this was your first tiger you saw. This is inspired.
Yeah, okay. Are you hearing me okay, Jules?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Okay. Listen, this isn't Bandavgarh. I went first of all in '97, and due to a combination of bureaucracy and Indian trains, the parsimoniously small amount of game drives turned from 4 to 1. I didn't see any tigers, and sure enough, there were prints and all sorts. But I realized I had to do it properly. To fast forward the next year in April, I arrived in a train station, and a local guide picked me up, and he said, "Did I want to go to my lodge and freshen up?" Never really understood freshening up unless you're about 150. And so we went straight to the park. They hadn't bought a ticket. They bought me a ticket there, had a rubbish zone. I wasn't expecting anything. And after half an hour, dusty and all sorts, in the middle of the roads, this huge male. And I don't mind, they were saying, "Oh, we're a bit behind time." And I say, "Look, you're not going anywhere." And it was amazing. And it was fast asleep. And I hadn't shaved for a few days. I remember just scratching my chin, and it opened its eyes. And I just took a series of 4 photographs. And I look at it now, I think I cropped off its paw, which is photographic heresy. But I had no idea then that was going to start this long-running passion I have However, what is, to finish this is, unfortunately, about 8 months later, that gorgeous pelt you see was on the back of somebody in China. So let's keep our eyes on the prize here. These things are worth an awful lot more alive than they are. You know, China have done enough wrong at the moment. Let's not add more of this to their culpability.
And that's a good way to end, because in reality, we worked out in 2010 that a single female was worth $110 million to the local economy in the decade that she lived in that reserve. That is an astounding amount of money for a single tiger. Now, all her progeny are continuing and still part of that. And that was Ranthambore Tiger Reserve. So we've done the studies. So if anyone's interested, they're all on our website. So I'm going to move straight on. There's one creature that I think we've forgotten about, and both Paul and I had a great opportunity to see the wolf, which of course is a real special, very unusual in Bandavgarh. How often do you see wolves, Jagat, in Bandavgarh? Once a season?
No, these days they're very, very rare. They're very rare to see these days. But I have seen them several times back in 2000 when I got an opportunity to go with the crew from Discovery International. So we saw a pack of 6 of them. So they used to be in Tala itself. And
in Tala?
In Tala. And several times we used to have the sighting actually of the wolves in Tala.
Okay.
And as the number of tiger increased, so they kind of moved out from the buffer area of the park.
Yeah, good. Okay, guys. Well, I'm just going to, on that note, I'm going to say a huge thank you to both of you, Jagat, for being great company, for being a fantastic guide as you drove us around there in bits and pieces, with both of us sort of backseat driving rather badly from behind. So I apologize. I meant to be riding my bicycle and not backseat driving. Paul, huge thanks. Lots of stories, lots of fun.
No. Thank you, Mara. And Jagat, you know, the only reason I have that photo of that wolf is the most important thing. It's because of Papu. He is an extraordinary guide like yourself. And to anybody, you know, looking to do anything, any wildlife trip anywhere, which I know you're all champing at the bit now, desperate to get out. That research into your guide, into doing it properly is absolutely critical. And please come back and visit these animals here and elsewhere, because they need you more than ever.
You're absolutely right. That's a perfect way to end.
The thing is, like, visit of nature reserves, it should be in totality, not only for one particular thing.
No, of course, and that's why we hope to have all the different creatures over the last couple of days while we put it together. And really, we kind of need to work very much harder on the sort of sustainability of our visits, and that's very much part of where we aim to be. And Top Tigers is driving that through the travel and tourism sector, the sustainability of it. And I'll just come lastly, we also do a lot of certifications. So the various lodges that we operate, Bagua Villas here was one. We have the Bandavgarh Jungle. You can see these on our website, toptigers.org. So feel free to come. We really ask you to follow the plug. We know these guys are nature-friendly lodges. There's some brilliant ones in Bandavgarh. Here's another one that's there, and we've got Koti, and we've got tree houses. You can say the Treehouse Lodge. These are all real quality places you can come and enjoy and stay, and you know that your visit is adding, benefit to those national parks.
Jules,
so let's do that.
Jules, just finally, and you're absolutely right to list this lexicon of accommodations, but right now they're empty. And they're empty for obvious reasons, but they will be empty a lot longer than they need to be if governments in Europe, particularly ours, carry on with this quarantine nonsense and this stupid one-size-fits-all FCO advice. Write to your MPs. I'm writing every single day to my poor guy. I said, and I will continue to until the quarantine's dropped and the FCO advice. Because otherwise nobody can travel, and all those local people will suffer, as will tigers and every other animal.
Not only India, but Africa.
All over.
Very close. I mean, wildlife is now very dependent on the tourism dollar. So really important. Those economies are critical. So everybody, huge thanks. Paul, thanks for giving us huge opinions. Jagat,
thank you.
Huge thanks.
Thanks, Jagat. Good to see you.
Please, if you've got any money and you're happy to help us, this is a Bike for Tiger Challenge. It is native of supporting these very communities at this important time. They've got months still without visitors. Most of them are closed, or they're open for a couple of weeks now and then are closed. Please, the donation page is on our Facebook site. Go to that, and if you enjoyed it, please contribute. And next week we're with Raghu and Joanna in Pana Tiger Reserve. So join us there. Thanks very much, and bye.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Jagat.